Bye. Okay, next up, as we continue on this theme of API integrations and business, we have Luis. If you can come to the stage, changing the game in hospitality integrations. That's very interesting. What are you considering in the realm of hospitality? Let's clarify that first.
I'm going to focus on hotel. That's actually the subdomain that I work on. But you can say that a lot of the changes that the travel industry as a whole are going through, will also be, if you may, covered to an extent. But my focus is hotel.
Absolutely, and I think everyone will find, as with anything, but especially in tourism and hospitality, that those that have the flexible architecture can move more quickly and respond to what could be described as dramatically changing needs, right?
You can call it that,
yeah. Maybe soul breaking for some, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, there is light at the end of the tunnel. So, and I hope that I can bring some of that light in my talk today.
Oh, we need more. We need more light. So
yes.
Please share your screen and let's get that positivity going. Oh, look at that. Already inspired.
Yeah. Exactly. I have so much to talk about. So if that's okay, I'm just going to crack on.
Perfect.
So I don't run out of time, and maybe I can answer some questions. Thank you.
Awesome.
So I'm just going to briefly introduce myself in case you haven't met me before. My name is Luis Weir, as you can see on the screen. I'm actually Venezuelan, living in the UK, married to a British woman, half British, half Bulgarian, and have 3 beautiful daughters. I joined Oracle 3 years back, and I have been living and breathing hospitality ever since. Before I joined Oracle, I was actually a consultant. I had the pleasure of helping some pretty large global, Fortune 500 organizations define and implement their API strategies. That experience is actually captured in my book, Enterprise API Management. So I pretty much published that book just before I ended consulting and moved into product. However, I'm here to talk about how we at Oracle Hospitality are changing the game in hospitality integrations by the launch of the Oracle Hospitality Integration Platform. And how is that enabling integration into the discussion I was just having a moment ago, how this is also accelerating innovation, okay? Before I get into the details of my presentation, I just want to kind of, set the context and talk a little bit about what is the domain, again, to the previous point that I'm going to be talking about, and why this is relevant to many people in our audience or many people that may watch this offline later on. In Oracle Hospitality, which is a business unit within the bigger Oracle, we offer a complete suite of products which are specifically aimed at helping businesses in the hospitality industry, mainly hotels and cruise ships, leverage cloud technologies to streamline operations. And ultimately, what the hoteliers want is elevate the guest experience. Our flagship product is called Opera PMS. If you are in hospitality, I am quite certain that you would have heard this name. We manage about 40,000 properties worldwide. All the major brands use our software, and this translates about 4.5 million rooms globally in about 190 countries. But it's not just hotel. We also cover cruise ships. We are the dominant player in cruise ships as well. The software is actually called SPMS, Shipboard Property Management System. And you can see some of the logos that we support on screen. That's so you understand where I'm coming from and what we do. But going straight into topic, integrations in hospitality are not really simple. Okay, and that's a fact. They can be actually quite complex, and that's because of the ecosystem, the rich ecosystem that exists in hospitality. There are so many different vendors from the traditional backend system of records that an enterprise needs to run, like a CRM or a PMS or a CRS or an ERP. But then you also have the hospitality OTAs, the online travel agents, which is the likes of Booking.com or Expedia or even Google for meta searches or even Kayak or whatever you prefer. To then the hospitality vendors, which is we refer to them as independent software vendors, and these are software companies actually that sell products that add value to the hotelier, like things like a booking engine or things like could be, for example, not just a booking engine, but the check-in, check-out contactless experience, revenue management, interactive guest communication like via WhatsApp or multi-channel and so on and so forth. And it's that interdependency of data, right? Because at the end of the day, they all need access to the same data. I have a reservation. Doesn't matter if I made my reservation through Booking or Expedia. I want to talk about that reservation throughout my travel journey. And is that really what adds the complexity? Given the number of players that are part of the ecosystem. To illustrate this in more detail, let me walk you through a very common traveler journey. One that I'm sure you would have been familiar with, maybe not at this very time, although traveling is picking up again, and we see, the number of bookings actually increasing quite dramatically. Although now with the latest variant is lowering a bit, but still it's quite optimistic, the outlook for hotel at least. So I just want to explain what happens behind the curtains, because I think we all know from a guest perspective, how you interact with the main systems that you have publicly, like the websites, and then when you walk into the hotel, well, what's happening behind? And this is what I like to talk. This is what I like to refer to as the API network, and how the API network actually creates, enables this ecosystem, right, and enables the value creation that I think is super important to understand. Normally, the journey begins with a guest picking up their, online travel agent, as I said before, Booking or Expedia, for example, and you start searching for availability, like which rooms are available. However, what happens on the background is actually not so straightforward. And many people, unless you're in hospitality, you might not know this. Basically, what happens is that, the OTA has an integration with central reservations, and there's a synchronization of information. The information is mainly called ARI, availability, rates, and inventory. And that's how you're able to search availability and make that booking. Most likely, you're going to have an embedded map capability, right? And that embedded map capability shows you, or allows you to navigate through the different hotels that are available in your given search criteria. So I think this is understandable. I don't think this is that complicated. But then there's another integration that is less obvious, and it's as important. And that's the integration against the Hotel Property Management System, the PMS. Most people refer to this as the heart of hospitality, okay? And that's because this is a system hotels need to actually run, all right? So when you walk into the hotel, that's what the front desk agent is gonna be using to actually check you in, for example. Or if you're using a mobile app and you check in, it's gonna be against this property management system. Obviously, all these networks are enabled through APIs, and if they're not going to be as efficient, and I will explain why in a second, okay? The PMS, in turn, actually connects to different systems like the point of sale, for example. So when you go to the restaurant, you can make a purchase, or a door locking system, right? So you can issue a key and go to your room, or a smart room. Like some hotels are really modernizing their experiences, and you can change the temperature, or you can change the TV only for your mobile phone, for example, or they want to charge you for the movie that you rented, right? Spas, mini bars, and even gaming systems. If you go to Vegas hotels, you could pop up, for example, your gaming account, or even pay your bill with the earnings, assuming that you won, or hopefully, I hope you won when you went to the casino. Another network that's very common and spoken about a lot, but not necessarily in this context, is payments. Obviously, at some point in the journey, some hotels charge at the start, other hotels charge, when you check out. That payment needs to happen. And normally, hotel PMSs talk to different payment service providers like Stripe, PayPal, Adyen, and so on and so forth through what's known as a payment gateway. So that integration normally, it's a must-have naturally, but sometimes you want to pay with points. And that's where an additional network comes into play, which is, well, I need to understand what your profile looks like. I need to understand how many points you've got. I want to then, be able to handle that, pay by points in my PMS or my CRS. And I also want to be able, once I complete the payment, assuming that I'm not using points, to give you more points in your loyalty account. So that's another important network, that API network that comes into play in this traveler journey that maybe it's not super obvious. But then there's a different route that a traveler can take in order to accomplish the same objective. And that is a direct hotel application. Hotels actually want you to use their direct channels, like, for example, the hotel website, the hotel mobile app. And there's a reason for that. And this is also, it's also a fact. The more hubs you have in your API network, chances are that your cost of integration is higher. And for the hotel, that means less profit. If you go direct to the hotel, direct to the hotel website or the hotel mobile app, what you see is that not only you're going to be able to make your booking, right, but you're going to be able to do more things through the app. You're going to be able to check out online, check in and check out. You're going to be able to order room service. You're going to be able to deal with your folio and your payments and so on and so forth. Having said that, though, not everything that I've spoken about right now is actually available yet. Okay, the hospitality industry is actually considered by many the second oldest industry ever. Okay, but it's not an industry that was notoriously known for being very, very modern, right? And what happened is that we have something that I'm pretty sure you're familiar with, that actually dramatically accelerated that journey. Okay, and although obviously the pandemic it's been difficult for everyone and industries, especially hospitality and travel in general. But I like to look at the glass half full, and I like to look at the light at the end of the tunnel. And one thing that I can also say for a fact is that the amount of innovation we're seeing in hospitality is unlike anything we've seen in the last 20 years. And that's because in order for hoteliers and the travel industry to adapt, right, and survive, they also need to, implement the new normals, adapt to the new normals. And the new normals really are like, I want to check in with my phone. I don't want to touch stuff. It's contactless. It has to be contactless end to end. I want to be able to, send my passport. The hotel wants to be able to identify you completely digitally. I don't even want to go to the front desk. I want to be able to get my digital key. And then with my digital key, I just want to go straight to the room. And once in the room, I want to be able to change the TV channels. I want to change the temperature. I want to be able to order room service. And then once I'm done with whatever I'm doing in my travel, it could be holidays or it could be business, then I just want to check out, walking straight out of the hotel without having to queue for pay my bill. And this innovation truly is being accelerated dramatically because of the pandemic, okay? And when I took on this role, which was just before the pandemic, right, I'm responsible for API. So you can imagine it's been a very, very hectic 2 years for me. But changing topics slightly, it's also important to understand what is the API value chain, especially for your industry. The API value chain is not the same in all industries, right? So in my particular case, for us and what I'm responsible for is actually an API business product. It's about how my capability is able to deliver value to my customers and to my vendor ecosystem, whilst at the same time, I'm able to benefit from it and make a profit. But in order to understand what that means and understand how value is delivered and how everyone benefits from this value chain, which you can see on screen. By the way, this is from my book. So if you want to drill down into the nitty-gritty of this, that's actually in chapter 1. You really need to understand what makes an API product successful. And it's actually not that complicated to understand. It's a little bit more complicated to implement, okay? And that's because you need to understand who your customer is, not necessarily who your API consumer is, but who is your end customer. If I explain this from a hotel perspective, both vendor communities, like the booking, the online travel agents or the smaller software vendors delivering booking engines and contactless solutions that they sell to the hotel, as well as the hospitality API provider, like Oracle Hospitality, we both have one thing in common, and it's that we want the hotel to benefit from our solutions. We want the hotel to deliver amazing experiences to the guests, ultimately. And what that means is that we have got to find that sweet spot. We have got to find the win-win-win factor. I want my API consumer, which could be a software vendor or could be the hotel itself, to benefit from this. I want my customers to benefit from this. And as an API product owner in a business, right, because we're talking about API as a business model now, I also need to benefit from this, otherwise my product is not successful. So finding that equilibrium is tricky, okay? And I'm not going to claim victory, at least not yet, because we haven't always done it right. Okay. In fact, our legacy offering is you can question it, right, in terms of how we monetize on interfaces, and monetization of interfaces it's something that we've been doing for a long while actually, but not necessarily the modern way, and that's what I'm going to talk next. But just so you understand what I'm talking about, let me walk you through a scenario. You have a hotel, okay? A hotel is looking for an innovative solution which may or may not have an interface with a property management system. If not, that means that an interface has to be delivered and validated, which means that cost to the vendor, right? It's not free for a vendor to actually connect to an interface, a legacy interface, which also uses legacy technology, which also makes it more difficult. But it also means that the hotel, and that's the way it works, legacy world, has to purchase an interface license. So the actual vendor can connect, right, to the hotel property management system. The hotel also needs to pay the vendor for the software that they're buying from them. And then when you look at the value what is the return on the investment? What is the value that you're getting back as a hotel? They're buying a software solution from the vendor because they need it. They need a contactless solution, right? As I said before, there's a lot of innovation needed in order to adapt to the new normal. And in many cases, the hotel don't want to build it from scratch. They want to buy it, okay? So that's clear. Like the hotel understands what they need, what gap they're trying to fill, and therefore they go and purchase a solution. That also means that the value that as a PMS provider we offer to the vendor is not entirely straightforward. It's questionable. They're paying for a validation, but what does that mean? Okay. Same with the hotel customer. They're paying for an interface license. But what are they directly getting out of it? Because it's actually the vendor that's delivering that value. And in the big scheme of things, there is definitely value, right? At the end of the day, we're enabling a connectivity, so that's okay. But what makes it tricky really is that the API value chain is not really that straightforward. If you can see on the diagram on the top right hand side, you can see that in this model, right? The interactions and the API value chain, right, it's not necessarily finding that sweet spot that I talked about. That's where the Oracle Hospitality Integration Platform comes into play. That's the new product or product. It's not a platform service, by the way. It's not a tool that you use to build your own integrations. It's a business API exposure layer that makes business APIs available for customers like hotels or software vendors to come and use. And what's different is that we no longer charge hotels for integrations. It's actually included for their internal use cases. Instead, we charge the vendor per call. And we charge in bundles of 10,000 calls for $10, which is quite affordable. Also, we've unified everything into REST APIs, and we're making available over 3,000 API capabilities, which makes us the by capability wise, like we offer most than any other one in the PMS industry. We also have over 2,000 Postman collections. At the end of the day, we're looking for speed, right? And if you think about what is the end result of this capability, how does that change the value chain? So I just want to briefly talk about, what does that mean? So if you look at the same value chain I kind of explained before, but now how it's transformed with this business model, it's a lot simpler. What it means is that the hotel engages a software vendor because they need to fill a gap, and the software vendor charges back to the hotel as they normally would. But then the vendor, they need capabilities from the property management system because that's a system of record for hotels. So they can just pay per call based on the value so pay for that value they need. And now we, as a provider of that PMS hospitality API, we are treating that vendor as a customer, meaning that we give them better support, we give them a better engagement model, but also the hotel saves costs because they don't have to license an interface, and they're benefiting from a very fast-growing marketplace. And that's the win-win-win spot that I was looking for. And just to close up, because I know I'm running out of time, this is booming, okay? This platform has been available for just over a year, sorry. We have onboarded over 300 vendors, 30 of which have already completed their integrations, and 20 are already live with customers. We have a community of over 1,000 developers. We've interacted, we had about 50,000 Slack messages, and we've answered about 10,000 questions. We do Agile with our cloud native solution, and we're handling about 30 million give or take calls a month. Lastly, the icing on the cake, Our API specs are open source, available in GitHub. So if you want to contribute or give us feedback, hey, come to our GitHub channel, Oracle repo, and give us feedback. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was super interesting. So just to understand, what profile of hotels is your target audience? Like what
we cover the full range. We cover the full range. Like we're notoriously known for 4 or 5 star hotels. Like most of the 4 or 5 star hotels in the world are using our software. But we're also quite big in independent market, like the 10-room, 5-room hotel. In fact, I went to Croatia in September. I stayed in a 5-room hotel, and they were using Opera PMS. So, and that really makes the product very rich. It's quite intense capabilities, it's configurable, so that's why it's so popular.
Wow, I was completely surprised because I figured the way you were describing it, it might be like, because a 5-room hotel in this time, I'm like, why are they buying software? But that's very interesting that they would. Yeah. You've got some comments that this is very insightful in the chat. And Carlos said, because I had asked, like, does anybody here work in hospitality? What's your experience? And he said, in my case, I only defined high-level architectures for HL7 integration.
That's healthcare.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Oh, hospitality. Hospital, Spanglish.
Healthcare. HL7 is healthcare level 7. In consultancy, I did lots of HL7 now into different industries, so don't talk about that anymore.
Yeah, that's very interesting, though. That makes sense. That would be their false friends. That's totally fair. So, yeah, that I was just the response to probably my comment of, is it like little baby hotels or big hotels? Like I assumed it was all big hotels.
I love that comment. I love that comment on startups.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. In the past, we were seen as a very expensive platform to connect to. Like you had to be an established player, like Oracle. That's expensive, and to a good extent, I was hard to kind of change that perception because we have really changed. We transformed, and what we see right now is that the number of startups that are already connected to Opera Cloud PMS, it's unbelievable. And I love them because they are so agile, they are so quick, they're so passionate. They are really trying to disrupt. So I would say that startups is something that we are supporting heavily. And we see a hike on the number of startups that have completed the integrations because now they can. Now it's affordable, now it's quick, right? And we don't benefit from that integration until the vendor, the startup benefits from that integration. It's a win-win-win model. It truly, literally really is.
And really the startups, that's the way they're going to be able to compete with the big vendors is that way. And just to read for those that aren't reading the chat, Olu had said, it just opened a new vista of opportunities for startups. And then there was a request for the deck because I think people want to study it more, and it was a lot of information to process.
I know.
So, do you have a link to the slides you can share in the chat or anything? Or
I will. I haven't uploaded them yet. I will upload them and give them to you, so you can share them on the chat, or I can put them on the chat if I can after I finish.
And if people want to get in touch with you about this more, what's the best way?
Luis.weir@oracle.com.
There you go. Absolutely simple. So finally, what are you looking towards in 2022? What are you looking forward to in your work?
In-person conferences. I want to meet everyone in person. I crave that. I mean, this is great. Like, don't get me wrong. It's great to be able to do this conference in Zoom. It's a fantastic. But I was in a customer workshop yesterday in person with a hotel company. And one thing I've realized after 2 years without doing that is in-person communication cannot be replaced. So that's something I'm really craving, if I'm honest with you, Jennifer. And I think it's going to be a mix of digital and in-person, but I think that in-person is something that I'm really craving.
I think that mix has to stay because people aren't flying people from Africa, which from an environmental perspective is good. We should be doing more local conferences instead of flying everyone to the US. Yeah. From the US to everywhere else in the world. But we want to make sure people around the world can access these events. So I think hybrid or offering both is still good because this is very convenient. But people aren't taking time off, are they, during these events? They're just multitasking.
Exactly.
My only concern is, do you think after 2 years, companies have just stopped budgeting for it? So then they're not going to pay for people's travel. They're not going to give them as many days off because they're not giving them days off for these online events. Most people are just,
Jennifer, I wish I had the answer for that, but all I can tell you is we need to fight for it.
Okay, fair enough. That is perfect. Muchas gracias, Luis. And
A ti.
Happy New Year. See you soon.